Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be creating this template. It is a task tracker spreadsheet. So here is the task tracker section, and we're going to be converting it into this dashboard. This is part of my dashboard series where I'm going to be taking simple databases such as these one and transforming them into useful dashboards. If you haven't seen the video where I talked about starting this series, I will leave a link so you can go ahead and check it out. And this is the first video of that series. Let's go over to the checklist. I always organize my videos with a checklist. It keeps me on track, and I hope that it makes it easier for you as a viewer to follow along with the video. All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. We'll start with the template overview. So let's go ahead and do that. So remember, this template has two parts. It's a very simple database, and it's kept overly simple intentionally because we have a dashboard. There's no need to add any charts or summary tables to this database. And then the dashboard area, we'll go over it real quickly, and we're going to design everything here. So this is just a quick overview. This top section here gives the number of tasks that are overdue, things like that. We have a task summary section. We have a table that shows upcoming tasks, graphs that summarize categories, priority status, and task assignment. And then we have another section here that really can be used for whatever fits your needs. I am going to be using this for a list of tasks and assignments. And as we go through this tutorial, not everything is going to work for every single person, but I will show you ways that you can change the formulas and tweak them to fit your specific needs. All right, so let's go back here and check this off. So we're done with the overview. Next, we're going to create the setup tab. Here is the setup tab for this template, and it contains mostly things that are going to be used to create dropdowns. So categories, priority, status, and assign to. It's very easy to make, but I will go ahead and create this from scratch, just in case you're following along and you want to do every single step like I have done. All right, so I'm going to start with a new spreadsheet, and I renamed the spreadsheet the same names as these tabs, but with a number next to it. So this would be setup 2. And I will refer to what we're designing as the template, and this as the example. So when I'm explaining things and I say, let's go back to the example, I'm referring to this. And when I say we're going to the template, I'm talking about what we're designing right now, just in case you get lost when I'm explaining things. And like always, with every single template that I'm creating, I always want a cleaner slate. So you know that Google Sheets comes with several rows and columns. You're not going to need most of them. I'm just going to remove the excess, okay? And then I'll add what I need later on. All right, so we have a very small canvas. We can go back and check just to see how much we need. So we need A through I and 1 to 20. So I'm just going to add one more. When you're creating yours for the first time, try to use the same rows and columns and ranges that I am using, because it's easier to make sure that the formulas work. Later on, when you need to adjust it, the formulas will adapt automatically. I'm also going to select the entire space and change it to my desired font. I also like to change the alignment of things. Change the row height to 30. And then I also add borders. So the first and the last row would also be 30. All right. If we go back here for a second, we need 1, 2, 3, 4. And then between each section, we have space. So we're just going to create that for now. All right. And resize them to 30. And then we can resize these right here. And then we're going to make them look like tables. So we'll call this category, priority, status, and this would be assigned to. All right, select this entire area, do an outside border around the header area. And now I'm going to add colors to this table, and I'm going to use this opportunity to show you how I add colors. When I add colors, I like to use custom colors. When you open your own sheet, these colors are not going to be the same as mine because I already applied custom color, right? So click this edit button, and then I'm just going to click done. Now, when I click done, it takes me back to all the options. I usually use one of these colors here. It doesn't really matter what you select, because when you select a new color, if I select this, for example, you could always go back and then change these colors to what you want. I like to use one of these colors here because I like the color combination that it provides. And the reason why I use these custom theme colors is that if I need to change it in the future, all I need to do is change this color here, and it automatically changes it for all of these tabs at once. So let me show you a quick example. So right here, you can see I have these colors applied. If I go back and let's change it to something very different, let's choose this blue color. You can see that it automatically changes it, at least to most of them. The color did not change here because I probably did not select it properly when I created this template, but you can see for the most part, the colors would adapt to the new theme color. Back here, I'm going to do the same thing. Going back to my color theme, I'm going to try to make sure I select the colors from here. So select whatever color you want. I'm just going to apply the border color here and then this for the header. And then one other thing I'm going to do is select this inner area. I'm going to apply internal borders. I like to use these lighter colors, so I'll use this one and select horizontal borders to apply it. So you can probably see it a little bit here, but to actually see it clearly, you have to remove the grid lines. To do this, go to View, Show, and check grid lines. So now you're only seeing the borders that we have added here. Now we have these 4 sections, and I'm going to use the same style. To do this, select this entire area, use this paint format, so click on it once, and just click on the header, and then just repeat this as many times as you need to cover the entire section. So now we have our setup tab done. You can now add your own information to this area. What I'm going to do is, to save time, I'm going to copy this information from here and paste it into my setup tab. I'm using paste values only. All right. And then let me show you how to add these colors. It's optional, but if you want these colors, here's how to do it. So I'm going to remove this one, delete it, go to Insert, Emoji, and I'm going to search for circle. You can see all the different colors show up for circle, and I'm going to select this one, and I'm just going to cut it and paste it here. All right, and then repeat the same steps for these ones. All right, so this is done. Go back to our checklist. We can cross this off. Next, we're going to create the database table. We're going to do the same thing. Open up a new sheet, and I'm going to clean up the sheet like I usually do. Next, I'm going to add a border around the header area. So just make sure that I select the style I want. And I'm going to add one more around the entire table. And then internal borders. I'm going to use the dotted one here and do horizontal borders. Now, of course, you're not going to be able to see them because I have the grid line on. And once I take it off, you can see what we have here. Okay, so now let's go back to our actual task database. I should rename this task database 2. So we have our setup 2, task database 2. I'm going to go back to this just to take a quick peek to see how many columns we need. All right, so here we have B to K. Let's see, I'm just going to add one more here. All right, so I have B to K. And copy these headers. All right, paste values only. All right, so I have my headers that I need. Then we're going to adjust this table, meaning that we're going to add our checkboxes, add the dates, and add the drop downs before we add any data into it. And we're also going to start adjusting the column width. So for example, starting with this first one, it's going to be a checkbox area. It doesn't have to be that wide, so we can make it narrower. Next, I'm going to add checkboxes. Now, you can easily do this by selecting the entire area, going to Insert and Checkbox, or you can use data validation. I will use data validation because I need to also use it for additional columns. So click on data validation and then add rule. Now, it's going to automatically add the first criteria that comes up. Before we even do that, let's adjust the range. So now it's selecting the range that I selected, which I did intentionally because it goes all the way down to 1,000. I don't want to scroll all the way down to select everything. Just remove 16. Once you remove 16, it's going to select everything all the way down. So that saves you a little bit of time. Change the criteria to checkbox. It's all the way down here. So click checkbox, and you don't have to do anything else here. So click done. And here is going to be number. So we can resize that as well. Maybe make these two the same size. So let's say 40. All right, and here's going to be task name, and you could just drag this to whatever width you want. If you tend to have task names that are very long, you can make your rows wider and then also change how it wraps around. So you can select this option right here so that even if you have a really long task name and this row is wider, probably around 40 or so, it would allow you to have 2 lines of task name. And I'm going to make this left justified. All right, so for the due date and the due date, these are date options, and we want to be able to double click in this cell and select a date so we don't have to type it every single time. Select just a small section, click add rule, and now remove 9. Okay, so whenever you remove 9, it's going to select from E3 all the way down to 1,000. All right, and then we're going to change this from drop down to is valid dates, reject the inputs, and click done. All right, so now every time we're double clicking any of these cells in these 2 columns, the calendar option shows up so we can select the date we need. All right, and then before we move on, let's change the format of the date. So I'm just going to select these 2 columns here, go to format, custom date and time. So we can select this option here. This would show you the full month, the date, and the year. I'm going to change this from full month to the abbreviation, so 3 characters long, and click apply. and this applies it to both of them here. The next 4 tabs are drop downs, so we'll work on them one at a time. So we'll start with a priority. We're going to do the same thing, just select a few cells, click on add rule, remove the last number that shows up, change it from drop down to drop down from range, select this icon that says select data range, select that, go to our setup tab, so setup 2, all right, and priority, select everything here, click OK, and click on advanced if you want to change the style. If you want the style to be this chip style, you don't have to do anything else. If you want to change it, you can change it to arrow or plain text. We'll keep it as the chip style for now, and you can also assign colors if you want. So right now there are no colors assigned, but if you want to assign colors, you go ahead and select them here. I'll leave it like this for now and click done. And we can resize these cells. So I'm going to select all of them at once, resize. I'll make these 200. All right, and then you can resize them individually if you need to, depending on what your needs are. So let's test this out. Click on this. You see we have the 4 options showing up here. All right, perfect. So let's do the next one. The same process, select add rule, remove the last number, drop down from range, select the range in our setup tab for status, click OK. All right, we're keeping the style the same, so nothing more to do. Click done. For category, the same thing, add rule, remove the row number, drop down from range, select the range. Here we go, category, click OK. And finally, assign to. This assign to tab is for if you're working with your colleagues or your employees, or if you are using this for personal use and you're working with your spouse or your kids at home and you need to assign different tasks to different people, that's what this would be for. So we're doing the same thing here, add rule, remove the row number, drop down from range, all right, and go back to our setup tab, select the range, click OK, all right, and click done. All right, and we can just test the rest of them. So here we have all of them working. Okay, and the last section is notes. I'm going to select the note and the task name. All right, I'm going to change them to the same width, so make them 300. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with task with the notes, highlight the entire range and just wrap the text. All right, and then apply whatever colors you want. I'm going to keep it simple, just apply some colors from my custom tab here. All right. The last step would be to add filters. You might be able to get away with selecting just the header, but I've found that sometimes it ends up not selecting the entire table. So what I'm going to do is just select the entire table, and I'm using shortcut keys, Shift, Command, and the down arrow key to select all at once. And click on the icon right here. It looks like a funnel that says create filter. Just click on that, and it applies the filter to the entire table. All right, so if we go all the way back up, you can see that the filter has been applied. All right, so now that the table is done, I'm going to copy the task from here because I'm using this as placeholder task. You can use whatever task you want, but what I'm going to do is copy these tasks here, and I'm going to paste it here. Right click, values only. All right, so it's giving me some errors here with high priority. It might be an extra space that is showing up here. Let's see. So yes, so there was an extra space here. So if we go back here, that error message is gone. And then because we have these icons right before the text, I also like to do left justify because it looks better. All right, so here is our final table. Back to our checklist. We have designed our task database and we've added data validation, so we can check this off. Next, we're going to start working on the dashboard, starting with a new sheet. I'm going to clean it up like I've done with the previous sheets. All right, so in our dashboard, we are going all the way to P. So I'm just going to add a few more columns back. Next, I'm going to resize the columns to match what I have here. So we need 3 columns, a spacer column, 3 columns, a spacer column, and the last section is 2 columns back here. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and right click, and I'm going to resize these to 30. All right, and then these guys here, resize these, make them 125. All right, and then this last one, we're going to resize it and make this 50. Okay, so roughly these sections, you can't really see them now, but let me go back here so you can see these sections are roughly the same size. You could always resize them to fit your specific needs, but we're starting with this general structure. Next, we're going to create this section right here. So go back here and select the next 3 rows and 3 columns. We're going to add borders around them and then add the background color. And then I can just copy it into these sections here. And then for this one, I'll do it manually because instead of 3 columns, it has only 2. All right, back here, and then I'm gonna add these texts here. The first one is the total task due today. The next is the total number of tasks completed. So overall in the database, the number of tasks that are overdue and the number of tasks due tomorrow. Okay, so here's what I have here. You can change the order. So if you want your overdue tasks to show up here, the number of overdue tasks, you can do that in whatever order you want to match your specific needs. I'm just gonna copy these texts. These are just plain text, so nothing special. Go back to my dashboard and I'm going to paste them as values only. These cells are merged, so do the same thing here. Select this entire area, merge. All right, so it shows up like this. Merge the bottom part as well, so merge this. And resize this text, make it smaller. And then we're going to resize this and make it bigger. All right, so it looks just like this. Okay, so now that we've done this, we can then use the paint option again and just apply the changes to the sections. For this section, I'm going to do it manually, just like we did before, and make this 24 as well. And actually just select this entire area and make it bold. All right, and then you see what it looks like when we put the formulas in. Right now, we're working on the structure. We'll add the formulas later on. Going back to our example, we're going to work section by section. So we'll create this section next. For this section, it's from row 6 to 13, and we need a drop down in the second row. So go back here. Select 6 to 13, add a border around it, and this is going to be a drop down, so we'll merge this. The drop down here is the task name from our task database, so we're going to do the same thing here. Go to data validation, add rule, drop down from range, select data range, go to our task database, select this, okay, and remove the number here. So just like we did before, to automatically select all of the tasks all the way down to 1,000, click OK. All right, and then just change the style to whatever you want. So for this is the chip. I don't want that style here. I'm going to change it to the arrow and click done. Merge this, add a color. Again, you're just adding whatever color works for you, right? Everyone has a different style and taste. And add my text color. And then I'm adding a color here as well. All right, so back here, I just wanted to point out that these cells are merged as well. So we're going to do the same thing for our own dashboard. Select the entire area, go to merge. Instead of clicking on the merge icon, click merge horizontally, and it would merge all of these cells individually. All right, so this section is done. Moving on to the next, we need to create a section here. We need a header area, and this goes all the way down to 45. So first I'm going to go back here and make sure I have enough space. So just add some rows back. All right, back to our dashboard example. This table has a drop down here and these cells are merged. Okay, so go back here, skip one row, select everything all the way down except for the last one, add our border. All right, so now we know this is going to be merged and this is a header section, and add a border at the bottom. These last two columns are going to be merged as well. So we'll do the same thing we did before. Click on merge, merge horizontally. All right, so now this entire section is merged. And then we know there's a drop down here. So let's go back and see. It says do today, do this week, and do this month. So we're going to do the same thing here. Select the section, add rule, drop down, do today, do this week, and do this month. Click on advanced option, change this to the arrow style, click done. Now go ahead and add whatever colors you want to your template. All right, next we're going to create the graph section right here. So let's go back to our dashboard example. So here we have 4 graphs. We have a large rectangle area. We have 2 squares and another rectangle. Okay, so we'll start with the first section. This starts in row 6 and goes all the way down to row 18. So back to our example. Right now we're just making the outline, 6 to 18. Add the border around it and add the border around the header, and then merge the header section, of course. All right, and then add whatever colors you want. All right, and next we'll create these 2 squares right here. These go all the way down to 31. So select the next section, all the way down to 31, add the border around the header section, add whatever colors you want. All right, and then merge the header section. And then I'm just going to copy this, use my paint format, and paste it here. All right, so now we have 2 identical squares. And then for the last one, do the same thing we did up here. All right, so here is what it looks like. And then we'll create a structure for this last section here. So the first rectangle starts from row 6 and it goes all the way down to row 14. And the rest of it is the table. Select 6 to 14, add our border. So merge and add the header and do the same thing here. We need another merge and a border and the rest of the table all the way down here at our table border. And then of course, go ahead and add whatever colors you want. All right, so now that we're done with the general structure, we can go ahead and remove our grid lines. So here's what it looks like. What's nice about this is that you could always adjust things around. So let's say you want to change the height of the section. You can just grab the section here, move it up. All right, so now you have this extra space. Then you could just grab these two guys, move them up, and grab the top part here, move it up, fill in the blank spaces here. So once you make this general structure, it's easy to adjust things around by changing the height and the width of the borders. All right, I'm just changing it back to what I had before. All right, so next we're going to add a text for the different header sections. So go back to our dashboard. I'm just going to copy these. All right, and then you can do the same as well. Just pause the video, task summary, category, and upcoming task and assignments. And I'm just copying it to save time because I'm going to paste it as values only. Task summary, category, upcoming task and assignments. Back here. All right, we have priority, status, and assigned to. I'll copy these two and paste them here. And I'm just going to type assigned to here. In this section, we have upcoming task and due date. So I'll copy this. And here it's going to say select and then due date and task. So let's do that. Paste this here. Here's going to say select. All right. And here we have due date. And here we have task. All right. So we're going to add a border around here, similar to what we did here. So add a border and add color. Change the text color here to white. All right. And then what I'm going to do for this table is to add internal borders. So select this entire area, use Control or Command, depending on if you're using a PC or MacBook, to select two areas at once. Select these two areas because I want to add the same type of internal borders. Click on borders, change it to this gray color, change the style to this dashed one, and click on horizontal borders. This says task and assigned to. So I'm just going to copy this. Before I add the header, I need to unmerge this. This was not supposed to be merged. So now I can paste my headers, task and assigned to. And this is going to be tasks. So for this section, select everything, change it to left alignment. All right, so it looks like this. All right, so I think we've collected all of our headers. Let's go back to our checklist to see how we're doing. All right, so we've added the structure and we've added the headers. So next we're going to add our dashboard formulas. Before we add the dashboard formulas to our templates, I did forget to mention that I do have a formula here and conditional formatting in the task database. So we're going to do that first. As you can see, these tasks have been marked as completed. So let's mark another one as completed so you can see what happens. Task number 7, which is buy groceries, it says in progress. Once I change this to completed, two things happen. The checkbox automatically checks off and it applies conditional formatting. To do this, we need to add a formula and then add conditional formatting to this area. So even though these checkboxes have been added, they're actually controlled by formulas. And it's really up to you if you want to add this formula or not, because you can use this as normal checkboxes without the formulas and just cross it off. But if you change the status to completed, okay, it's redundant to go back and check the checkbox. So in order to remove that redundancy of marking as completed and checking it off, I added a formula to this area so it automatically checks that box for you every time this is marked as completed. All right, so the formula is right here. It's only in cell B3 and it affects the entire column. So here's the formula. It's an array formula. It applies to this entire column and it's looking at column H. Okay, the status in column H. If that status is completed, it checks this box off. So let's do that. We're going to copy this. You can pause the video and copy the formula, take it back to our task database. Before we paste the formula here, we need to remove the checkboxes here. So we're just going to select everything all the way down, delete, go all the way back up. Now we're going to paste the formula here in cell B3. I'm just going to say false and true, and then we can go back here and add back the checkboxes. So just select a few of them. Data validation. All right, add rule, remove 13. Okay, so it applies to the entire range and change it from drop down to checkbox. All right, and click done. So now you can see that every time we have completed, it checks it off. So let's change the first one from not started to completed. You see it automatically crosses this box. Next, we're going to apply conditional formatting to the entire table. So I'm going to select the entire table, but just a few of the rows. Conditional formatting can be found under Format and Conditional Formatting. I like to also access it from Text Color or Fill Color because it's always right here. So we're going to click on Conditional Formatting. And just like we did before, we're going to remove row number 13, so it applies conditional formatting to the entire table. And now what we're going to do is change the formatting rules. Go to Custom Formula Is, and you're going to type equals $. All right, we want B3. All right, cell B3 is the first one here with a checkbox. We're going to say B3 is true. All right. So B3 is true means it's checked off. And as you can see, it already applied the conditional formatting. We're going to change the style though. So change this to whatever style you want. So if you want it to be none and you just want it to show up as crossed off, like the strike through, you can do that. If you want the text color to be grayed off when it's crossed off, change the text color here, make it gray. And you can add a background color if you want, just like I did in my example. Something like this, and then hit done. So now everything is automatic. So if we change this to completed, it checks the box as well as apply conditional formatting to that task row. All right, so that part is done. Now let's go back to our dashboard and add the formulas we need to add to our dashboard. So I'll make this bigger because I want you to be able to see the formulas. And of course, you could always pause the video and write down the formulas. If you are a paid Patreon subscriber, you will have access to this template, so you don't have to worry about pausing the video and getting the formula correct. So thank you for my current Patreon subscribers. All right, so right here's the formula. It's a count formula. It's going to reference the task database and using today's dates to identify the tasks that are due today. And an additional thing here, you'll see that we're referencing cell B3 and it says false, and that is it's going to exclude any of the tasks that has been checked off automatically. So remember, column B has the checkbox right here. Okay, so what this formula is going to do is going to exclude those, so that it's only pulling in the tasks that are due today that haven't been done, that haven't been checked off as completed. So we're going to copy these. All right. And we're going to take it to our dashboard area. We're going to paste it here. But before we hit enter, we want to change the name. So this task database is this one. We want to reference this one. So we're just going to add 2, space 2. All right, we're just matching the name. So if this was a completely different name, you would delete this name and add in whatever your tab name is. All right. So we're going to do that and hit enter. Now it says no task is due today, which is fine. Let's go back to our database. And today's date is May 20th. Let's change this due date to May 20th here. Actually, we'll change a few of them. So we have these 2 tasks here with a due date of May 20th. So if we go back to our dashboard, now it should say 2. The next formula is going to calculate the total number of tasks completed in the database. So regardless of date and time period, is going to show you all of the tasks that have been marked completed. All right, so we're going to copy that and take it back to our dashboard here. Paste it here and remember to change the name and then hit enter. So for here we have 6 completed tasks. Let's just double check that. Go back here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the formula is working the way it's supposed to. Go back to our dashboard. Let's do the next one. The next one is number of tasks overdue. So here's what the formula looks like. Again, it's reviewing the task section and it's looking at today and it's saying if the date is less than today. It's also going to make sure that it's not including the tasks that have been crossed off as done. All right, so copy the formula. Go back to our dashboard, paste it here, change the name to 2, and then hit enter. So now we have no task overdue. So let's change that. Go back to our task database. We do have all of the tasks in the future. So we have May 20th all the way to June 5th. So let's change that. This task for buy groceries, let's change it to the 18th. All right, so the task due date is in the past and it's not checked off. So we should have 1 task showing up here. And that is correct. Going back here, let's mark this task as completed. Now we should have no task that's overdue in our dashboard because this task, even though the due date is overdue, it's been checked off as completed. So when we go here, it says 0. So it means the formula is working the way it's supposed to. Let's move on to the next one. In this formula, it's looking at today's date and it's adding 1 day. So task with a due date of tomorrow and also excluding any task that has been marked as completed. So copy that formula. We'll go back here, add the formula here. Just remember you have to change the name, the because we're referencing a different tab. All right, so hit enter. Now it says 0. Let's make some changes to our database. All right, so we have May 20th. So let's change it to tomorrow. So tomorrow is the 21st. Let's do a couple of them. So we have 3 tasks due tomorrow, May 21st, and these tasks have not been completed. So go back here, it says 3, so that works. Let's mark one of them as completed. So it should say 2 due tomorrow, and it does say 2. So this section is working the way it's supposed to. All right, so let's move on to the next section. This is a task summary area, and these are the column headers. So when you select a task, it's going to display task summary information. So the due date, the due dates, the priority, status, category, and who it's assigned to. And if you go back here, this is the example database. All right, what we're doing is just pulling the information from here. Due date, priority, status, category, and who is assigned to. That's the information that goes here. And then right here is the information from the actual table. All right, so we'll start by just adding some internal borders here, because I didn't do that before. All right. And then here is where we're going to add the column headers. So many ways to do that. You can type it manually, or you can just reference the name of the column. And I like to do this because if you change the name for whatever example, it changes automatically. So it's an equals to sign in that cell, going back to the task database and selecting the header area and hit enter. And it's just going to copy the name that we have placed, or the value that we have placed in that cell, and just do the same. All right. And then you could put it in whatever order you want. So if you wanted the status up here, you can just add the status equals to and add the status up here. All right, so whatever order works for you. And then finally, we'll add assigned to. Okay, and if you wanted to add notes, you could absolutely expand this area, add an additional row, and add notes. Okay, for this example, I'm not doing that. And then what I did here was just left align it and I made it bold. Next, we're going to add the formulas here that would actually pull in the information. So let's go back to our example dashboard. Here's what the formula looks like. So it's going to filter E3. E3 is the column with the due dates, and it's going to match B7, which is the dropdown that contains the task name with the task in this range in column D. So if we go back here, you can see our task name is in column D and the due date is in column E. So that's all the formula is doing. It's matching the task name we have selected here with what's in the database, and then filtering the corresponding information here, which in this case is due date. So we're going to copy this. And what's nice about this is once we paste the formula here and we change the task database to our actual template name, which is task database 2, and because everything else is aligned, the formula should work seamlessly. So once we hit enter, you can see that we have a date filtered, and then we can just change the alignments. So it looks like this. What's nice about this too is that we can just copy this formula, we can paste it here, and then change the column that's been filtered. So if we hit enter here, it's still going to filter this column. This header is column F. So now we can just go here and change this from E to F, and it makes it so much quicker. And now we have the due dates, and just repeat the same steps. So this is column G. So now change this from E to G. All right, we're just changing it in 2 spots right here. Okay, to make sure that it's selecting the entire column. And then it filters the priority, and this would be H, enter, because the status is in column H, and then category is column I, so do the same thing, column I, enter, and column J. And then now when we change this, it updates automatically to filter the information to that specific task. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is work on the filter for this table right here. All right, this is also a drop down, due today, due this week, and due this month. And these values are incorporated into the filter formula. So in this section, we want the date to be filtered and we want the task to be filtered. So let's look at the formula that does this. So the formula right here is in cell B18, double click, and it's a long formula. I will provide the formula on the screen, but it's essentially a very long formula. And you can see in this formula, there is due today, due this week, and due this month, which matches the values we have in this drop down. So it's quite long, but what it's essentially doing is filtering in the due date and the task due based on the value here. All right, so we're going to select this formula. Let's go back here and we're going to paste it right here. Enter. So everywhere I have task database, I'll just change it to task database 2. All right, and scroll down All right, and change these guys as well to task database 2. So it appears in a few areas. Just make sure you don't miss any of them. Change the name to task database 2 or whatever it is that you're naming your task database. Again, it has to match. If you're naming it task database 2 to match what I'm doing in the video, later on you could rename the tab and the formulas would adapt automatically. All right, so everywhere shows task database 2, right? Task database 2. All right, now we're going to hit enter. And now it says no task, of course, because we have nothing selected here. So let's change it to due today. So we don't have a task due today. All right, so let's go back and change that. So back in our task database, let's change this to due today. All right, so we have at least one task, and that is attend yoga class. So go back here. All right, so it shows an error message. There might be a problem with the formula. So just double checking the formula to make sure that all of the task database names have been changed, but that will be the first culprit because the formula worked before and it should work. All right, so we have our culprit right here. So this will not change to task database 2. All right, so I'm just double checking. So all of them have the correct name. Let's enter. And now we have the formula working. So we have the date, May 20th, and the task shown up here, which corresponds to what we have here. Let's change this to today's date and let's change one more. All right, so we have 3 tasks due today. So attend yoga class, blog post, and garden layouts. And it shows up right here. Attend yoga class, blog post, garden layouts, and the dates are correct. Select the task. I'm just going to realign it to the right because I like how it looks like this. And make this bold. All right. So now let's test the other drop down. So let's say it's due this week. So these tasks also show up because they're due this week. And let's change the database so we actually have other dates that are not today. So I'm just going to drag this down. So we have some other dates in May. All right. And it shows up here. So due this week. And then we're going to change this task here to also be due in May, but not this week. So here's the current week. Let's change this to May 29th. All right. And then we go back here. So due this week. All right. And then change it to due this month. And then we have that task shown up here. All right, so the formula works the way it's supposed to. It is a really long formula, so pause the video if you have to and just go section by section to make sure that you get everything correctly. All right, we're going to skip this area because these are graphs and we're going to move on to this section right here. We have a formula here in this section and we have a formula in this section. All right, so here's the formula. And what this formula is doing, it's filtering the task database. And it's going to pull the name of the task and who is assigned to. And this is where you have some flexibility. So the task is in column D and the assignment, so who the task is assigned to, is in column J. All right. And then it's excluding any task in column B that has been checked off. It's not restricted by dates. It's pulling the information for all of the tasks and who is assigned to. And as long as the task has not been checked off, it's not going to filter it. Now, you have some flexibility. Let's say you wanted to show a different column. For example, let's say you want the task displayed and then in the second column you want the category displayed. Instead of column J, you change the reference to column I. So here, column D is the name of the task and that's going to be filtered first in this first area. And then column J is who it's assigned to. If you want column I filtered because you want the category to show up here, change it from J to I. Back to our templates. We want it to show up right here. So we're going to paste it here. And before we hit enter, change the name of the database to our database that we are referencing. And then it's going to show up like this with the task and who it's assigned to. Make this bold. All right. Let's say you don't want the assigned to show up here because you're the only one using this template and it doesn't make sense for a use case. Let's change this to category. Category is in column I. So we can change this to column I. Just changing J to I. That's all we're doing here. I'm going to hit enter and then we can just change this to category. And as you can see, now it shows category. All right. So the task name and the category it has been assigned to. And then this can be anything that is here. So it could be status, it could be priority, whatever it is that you want to fit here. Just be mindful, of course, because this is a narrow column, but you can make it wider to fit your needs. And then the last formula right here. Okay. It's a count formula. And if we double click here, you can see that it's just counting the values here. We're just going to copy this and paste it in this section, merge it, and then paste the formula here. All right, so it's counting 7 because we have 7 values in here. So it doesn't really matter which column you choose because the values in this column would match the values in this column. All right, and then we'll make this bigger and bold. So make it 24 and bold. All right, and that's it for the formulas. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to add our graphs. So going back to the dashboard, we have a graph that represents the categories, priority, status, who is assigned to, and then we have one final graph here. These graphs are obtained from the main dashboard, and this graph is from the data in this section. So let's go to our template. I'm going to do the category graph first. Go to insert chart, click right here. Now we need to add the range. Go to data range, click on select data range, go back to our task database. All right, so the first is our category. This is what we want in our graph. So I'm just selecting some of them in that range and removing the row number. Click OK. And now I'm going to click aggregates. So it adds up all of the individual categories. Pull it into the space right here. I'm going to customize it further. So here's the setup area. Click here to customize chart type, remove the background color and the border color. All right, so that's this graph. And then you can make changes to the colors here. So if you wanted a different color for each category, you can double click, start with the second one. Click on it one more time so it only selects that bar. Fill color, change it to the green. Click on the next one. And just click on each individual section and change the color to whatever you want displayed. All right, so that's what that looks like. Next, we're going to work on priority. Again, we're doing the same thing. Insert charts, select the range. We're going to go back to our table and select the range for priority. All right, move the row number to select everything. Aggregates, and here's what it looks like. So we're doing the same thing here. Just to keep it consistent, I'm removing the background color and the border color because I already have my borders around this section, so I don't need the borders from the graph. All right, and just put it right there. Do the same thing for status. Insert charts, go to our database, select status. All right, remove the row number. Okay, aggregate, and I'm going to change the style from column to pie, and then customize it the same way. Just removing the border and the color, and pull it in this space. And then you can change the legend. So to do this, go to legend. And right now it's in auto, which is the labeled style. This one right here, you can change it to top or left. So it shows up like this, whatever your style preference is. And then next we'll do the same thing here. Insert charts. Select the range for assign task database. Assign to aggregates. All right, to pull it into the section. And let's change the colors around. And I'm just going to change the color for all of them. I'm not going to change it for each individual person. And then for this one, you could actually change the individual colors here. So let's go back here. I'm just going to select it once to open up the customize, and then select the bar, this first bar. And I'm going to change it to match these colors here. So go to fill color. And what we can actually do is select the color by using the custom color. All right, these little color picker icons, select that. And we're just going to select this red color here. And then do the same here. Click on this bar, fill color, use that. Select orange color next. Select the third bar, fill color, select the green. And then the last one, same step, fill color, select the blue. All right. The only thing about doing it this way is that if you change the custom color, this is not going to change automatically because these colors are not part of the custom color. So if you wanted to change automatically, you can stick with using these colors for the bars. All right, and then for the last section, the graph is going to be based on the category here. Select the category range, insert charts. It's already aggregated, so that's fine. Go to customize, remove the background and the color, and go to pie charts, and we're going to change it to the donut, and I'm going to change it to 80. Okay, they're pre-assigned values here, but you can also type in whatever value you want. So I type in 80 to make the donut hole larger. Click enter, and then I'm just going to pull it into that section here, and I'm just removing this header because I don't need it, and close this up and just pull it in here. And here is what it looks like. So let's go back to our example to make sure that we're not missing anything. So going back to our dashboard, you can see that we have covered every single section. Of course, there are some differences with the colors, but we have essentially recreated template. Let's go back to our checklist to make sure we're not missing anything. All right, so we added the formulas and the graphs, and I already mentioned this, but for my Patreon members, just to reiterate, you will get a copy of this template, so you don't have to worry about copying the formulas and making any mistakes. You'll get this exact template that we have created. Thank you so much for my paid Patreon members. I appreciate your support. And that is the end of today's tutorial. Like I said before, I have many more tutorials lined up related to creating these dashboards. So if you have specific examples of dashboards that you want me to create with specific use cases, let me know. Leave them in the comment section below, and I will go ahead and try to create something that works for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Take care.